you, and I believe you all see my screen, but if you don't, please let me know. So today I'd like to talk to you very briefly about the Ecological Threat Register. It's a new report produced by the Institute for Economics and Peace that compares countries' exposure to ecological threats to their underlying level of resilience. The object of this work is essentially to identify countries that are most at risk and where sort of resilience building efforts should be focused. And more broadly, it sort of aims to be a catalyst for resilience building activities worldwide. Of course, this includes regenerative agriculture. So we certainly hope that it can be a tool for further highlighting these efforts going forward. This is the inaugural edition of the Ecological Threat Register, and it covers 157 countries, 97% of the world's population. Those are the countries that we currently have data for, and it covers 8 areas of ecological threats, many of which relate to regenerative agriculture, many of which relate to climate change as well. So in terms of resource scarcity, specifically food security, water stress, and population growth. And then it also tracks impacts from natural disasters, from floods, droughts, cyclones, temperature rises, and sea levels. Now, the register projects out to 2050, so it provides a snapshot, essentially, of the ecological threats that the world's going to be subject to over the next 30 years. The methodology is developed by the Institute for Economics and Peace, and the the resilience measure that we use is IEP's Positive Peace Framework. Now let's delve straight into some of the key findings, which I hope will be relevant to the audience today. We find that 141 countries are exposed to at least one ecological threat between now and 2050. Now, more than half of those countries, home to 6.4 billion people, are or will be exposed to medium to high number of ecological threats. Now, 19 of those countries are going to be subject to 4 ecological threats or more, and they are currently home to over a quarter of the world's population. Now, in addition, 10 of these, more than half of these, are also in the 40 least peaceful countries on the Global Peace Index, which is another report produced by IEP. But this, among with other data that you'll see today, really reinforces the connection between sustainable living, climate change, and conflict. In the report, we generally identify 3 clusters of ecological hotspots. These are specific countries that are susceptible to collapse because they have high exposure to ecological threats and low levels of resilience. So the Sahel region from Mauritania to Somalia, the Southern African belt from Angola to Madagascar, and then the Middle East and Central Asian belt from Syria to Pakistan. Now, from this, we estimate that 1.2 billion people are at risk of displacement by 2050. Now, the 3 major immigration routes internationally are Latin America to the US and Canada, and into Europe, the Sahel, Sub-Saharan Africa, South Asia, and the Middle East to Europe. Now, it should be noted that this immigration doesn't constitute by any means the largest immigration that will occur due to ecological threats. UNHCR currently estimates that only 1 in 5 people make this trek. Most of the migration will be internal, which is one more reason, I think, for obviously supporting regenerative agriculture as a means of coping. And the important thing to identify also here with regards to the research is that even without climate change, ecological threats will lead to failed states in the future as well. Climate change exacerbates, but is not the complete cause. Just a quick note of interest, out of the countries that are at most at risk, only 3 of them are within the largest recipients of climate aid, which kind of sort of speaks to whether current levels of development assistance are being well placed. This is the global distribution of ecological threats. The ones in red are the ones with a higher number of ecological threats. The ones with green are the ones with the least. It's not completely representative of the potential impact. For example, Sierra Leone, 90% of the population is subject to food insecurity, whereas in Germany, for example, is also subject to one ecological threat, but that's floods, and there have practically been no fatalities at all. But so this is why it becomes really important to bring in a country's underlying level of resilience when making this analysis. And the health of the agriculture industry and food security is a key component of this. When we bring in that resilience that countries have, this map changes extremely, and we really identify in those three belts there where most of the vulnerability exists. Very briefly, these are the three routes again. Global population is projected to reach 10 billion by 2050. By the same time, the least peaceful countries on Earth will be home to an additional 1.3 billion people, and will essentially be home to more than half the world's population. 17 countries in sub-Saharan Africa will be doubling their population by 2050. So Niger, for example, is expected to increase its population by 171%. Now, what we see is that high population growth is often a reflection or a mirror image of high mortality rates. And this can be seen very well in this graph here. Now, the 20 countries with the highest mortality rates due to unsafe water, unsafe sanitation, lack of hygiene are all located in sub-Saharan Africa. And if you compare each of these graphs to where the global average is, that you see here in the middle, it's pretty spectacular and worrying. With regards to water stress, 2.6 billion people live in countries with high water stress. That is going to double by 2040. 60% less fresh water available per person today. Developed countries use 10 times more water than developing countries. The number of water-related conflicts is on the increase. And this is very quickly, because I realize I'm going past my time here. Global undernourishment and water scarcity. 65% of the population in each of the world's least peaceful and low-income countries experience food affordability problems. There's a very strong correlation between food insecurity and conflict, and nearly 60% of people in sub-Saharan Africa face food insecurity. This is the highest in any region. In fact, this is broken out very briefly in this chart here, which sort of shows us the very luxurious position that we have in North America, and Europe, for example, certainly helps it put it all into context. And that's it. If you'd like additional information, I'm of course very eager to participate in the discussion today, and you can find further information in our report. Thank you.